Hello, thank you for joining us today. My name is Leah Miller with Creative Aging Network, North Carolina. Today we're going to paint a winter scene, so you'll need a piece of watercolor paper, some paint brushes. I have a large flat, a medium flat, and a small round. You'll need some watercolor paint and water, and of course a paper towel. We're going to come down about halfway down our paper, a little bit lower maybe, and just go straight across. And we're just going to use clean water. So we just want to cover the top half of our paper with water, clean water. And this will allow us to do a nice light wash of our sky. So the first thing I'm going to do is put some orange paint right along this area of my paper. Just moving back and forth and putting the color on here, letting it blend with the water. There we go. I'm going to rinse my brush out. And I'm also going to come down here. This is where my water is going to be. I have like a lake reflecting the image above. You can see my paper is starting to buckle a little bit. That happens when it's wet. The way you can get around that is to actually tape it down onto the table or onto a board. I might grab a tube of watercolor paint to put there on the corners just to hold it down. There we go. That'll keep it from buckling up too much. And then I'm just adding water all the way down to the front of my paper, leaving some dry area in between. So we have our sunset area, and then we have a dry section, and then we have water. So I'm going to take this orange again and bring it down here into what will be my water. I'm bringing it pretty close to the bottom of the page. All right. Now you'll notice sometimes when your paper buckles, you start to get some heavier color in areas. You can just take the corner of your paper towel and dab it along wherever there's any excess water that's pooling. Just pull that water up. All right. So we have our sort of sunset color up here. We have a little bit of it down here. I might add just to make it a little bit stronger, just along one little area here. It's really make it a little heavier there. There we go. That's better. And again, I'm just letting the water do the work to blend that. And I'm going to take these away now. It's nice to hold that top of the paper down. And I'm actually going to, now what we have to be careful of is if we're going to put blue up here, and I do want to put some blue up here on my paper, I don't want it to mix with this orangey yellow here, because blue and yellow make green. And I don't want to have green in my sky. And blue and orange will make more of a brown color. So I do want to let this dry before I add any of the blue up here at the top of my page. Same is true for my water. I don't want to add any blues in here because it will get sort of a muddy green looking, kind of an army green looking color actually. And this is a winter scene, so we will leave some white areas down here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab a pencil. And I'm just going to sketch, just for my own purposes, right about here. And I'll do it darker so that you can see it. But I'm just going to do sort of, these are going to be hills. Sort of some hills that are snowy. So I don't want to put any color in this area because I want to have these sort of as snowy hills here. So I think you can see that pretty good, hopefully. And I've just sketched very loosely these three hills. Now I can come back and erase that when I get ready to start painting if I want, or I can let the pencil line show through. I particularly like pencil lines, so I will let them stay. So what I'm going to do now is wet my medium-sized flat brush. I have my paper towel here. I'm just going to dab it off so I don't have too much water on it. And I'm going to start just putting a soft color right in here, sort of a gray color. So I'm going to mix some black with some of my dark blue and add water so that I thin it down nicely. A little bit more blue in there. And this is going to be sort of a shaded area of the hill. So I'm just going to bring it right down here. And I'll do the same. I'm just going to use this pencil edge as my marker. And I just put a shadow there, but I want the top to be soft. So I'm adding water across the top, rinsed my brush, just adding water across the top so that that will blend a little more and it will be softer, a softer edge. So those are some shadows for our little snowy hills. That's what we wanted to put there. And then up above the hills and in front of this is where we'll put our trees. Don't want to put our trees yet because we want to put a little bit more color in our sky and our trees will go up over the sky. So it'd be very hard to put the trees and then come back and put some blue. So the way to do that is I'm going to use my hair dryer and I'm going to dry what I have on the page so far. And then that way I can move on to the next step. And I'm going to take my big brush again. I'm going to wet the top of my paper, even though I just dried it. I'm going to wet the top of my paper just down to where the orange is. And I'm going to take this light blue and I'm just going to run that across the top. And again, let the water do its job. Let the water blend these colors. I might even take a little bit of my darker blue and just add a little bit of that. Just on this side. I'm not going to make it go all the way across. Okay. And I don't want to leave a white line here, so I want to rinse my brush and I want to dab off any excess, like lots of excess water. And I'm just going to come in here and very gently pull some of this blue down toward my orange so that I don't have a line of blue and then a line of orange. Add a little bit more color in here. And just let that blend. Let the water do its job of blending those colors. And you can make it smooth or you can make it mottled like I did, and you'll get some variation in the sky, almost like you have some clouds up in there. I can look at it and see, do I want to add a little bit more water, drip a little water here and there, just to help it blend a little bit. But it's really, again, it's your personal preference. It's up to you what you want to do. So next what I'm going to do is add some blue down here in my water. And I'm going to use the same blue that I was just working with, those blues, and mix it just a little bit with black. I already have black on my palette here. So I'm taking my blue, oops, and just mixing it at the edge of that black color. And then I can come right along here. This will be my water's edge where it meets with the land. I'm just going to come right across here. So let's just see how we're doing here. That's still wet. I'm going to use my hair dryer again. So now I'm going to start putting my trees in right up here. And after I've put my trees in, I'll paint, you know, this foreground area and then add more to the water. So the first thing I'm going to do is take more of this blue, my dark blue and my light blue, add some water, and I'm going to paint right across the bottom here, right over the top of that line where the orange and the white kind of met. I'm going to bring this blue all the way down to the top of the hills, the little snowy hills I created. So I'm going to wet my brush, and then I'm going to come right along here, and I'm going to do some tall, what would be tree trunks. And just using the side of my brush, I'm just going right up to create a forest of evergreen trees. And they're not all going to be the same height. Some are taller, some are smaller. Again, I'm loading up my brush, and I'm using blue for this. I'm mixing my light blue and my dark blue together. And it's very wet. I'm just going to do this all the way across, just adding more trees as we go. Now we're going to fill in a little bit down here. So let's say we have one, goes out this way, goes out this way. So I'm just thickening the base of these just by tapping my brush out to the side and making them a little bit fatter, those trees. So I'm going to wet my brush, put clean water on it. Just let that stay in the clean water. I'm taking my medium-sized brush. And now we're going to soften this up so it's like a misty, rainy, kind of snowy day. And I'm just taking my flat brush with clean water and going right along the edge of these trees just to soften them out, like it's really sort of a foggy kind of a look that we want to give. So while this is damp, I also want to come back in here and pull out any hard edges just with the edge of my brush. I can go in and just tap it onto the paint and then tap it onto my paper towel. Tap it on the paint, tap it on my paper towel. And that is also softening any hard lines that start to form along the edge of where the water meets the dry paper. We want to add a little bit of variation to the color here, so I'm going to put some red in here. So I'm taking red straight from the palette. I'm going to mix it with a little bit of this purple to cool it off, because this red is a nice fire warm red. This is more of a wintry, cooler purple. Each of them on their own are pretty colors, but they don't work with what I want to do. But when I mix them, I get the color I want. So I'm going to come in here where some of this water still is, and I'm just going to add some of this beautiful, rich red color. I'll let it go right over top of some of this area that I painted before. Add a little bit of water to it to let it blend down in here. It should be blending on its own up top because we have water in here already from softening the edges we were working on before. And then I'm just gonna bring it right down here. And let it fade a little bit out to the side. And I'm not going to do it on all of them. I am just going to let it kind of fade out. See, I'm just rubbing my brush along the edge here. Just let it fade out over on this side. And I'm bringing it all the way down to the base there. Now you can see it's starting to puddle up here, so I've wiped my brush. I'm going to take the corner of my brush and just pull some of that color out. And I don't want a hard edge, so I've cleaned my brush and I'm just taking the brush and just pulling some of that paint off the sides so that it doesn't form a hard edge. But I like the warmth of that sort of purpley red added in there. All right. I'm going to make some darker blue. I had the blue here mixed. The blue, the dark blue, and the light blue were mixed on the page before. So I'm just taking my dark blue and I'm just going to paint with it just like I did the red, just darkening some areas, adding more saturation and water along the edge so that it's nice and soft. And I'm just adding more of the color down at the bottom there. So I also want to make some more nice dark blue here. And this is nice because this paper is still wet over here, so it really works nicely. And it's blending beautifully with that red that I added to the page. So now we have some nice contrast there with some reds and some blues and just the sort of the hint of trees back up in there. The last thing we're going to do is take some black and mix it with our blue and create some depth right at the front of the painting. So we'll come in just where we were working before, right alongside that blue, and really add some depth by putting some darker colors here and letting them blend with what is there. But we don't want to cover over what we've just done. We want to just enhance it by adding darks right up in front of what we've just created. Almost like little smaller trees in the front. And you can see I'm just dabbing along and bringing up my brush, just the edge of my brush. And I'm going up and down, just dabbing it along. And where I have that really harsh edge, I certainly don't like that harsh edge, so I'm going to add a clean wet brush here and just pull this up to soften it. And on both sides. Now you can also pull out some color here. You see how I pulled that color out? If I wet my brush, clean my brush and then dry it off, I can pull color out. See, you can do that. So if I want to pull out some of this black over here and make it look like maybe there's a tree trunk, I can do that. So just a really abstract sort of trees in the background. And then we want to mimic that down below. So we already did our water edge there. I am going to put a light coat of water on top of this because this is the reflection in the water and it is going to be softer than what we did up above. So we will bring our blues, and I'm basically going to mimic my blue down here. See, I have this up here. So we're going to bring it down. Again, more blue here. Then it's a little longer, it's a little taller here. Even taller here, but that's going to be a purple. So we're going to have to go back and bring some purple in here. Oops. I didn't mean to do that. Just dab that off. You make a mistake like I just did, you just dab that off. Rinse your brush. I just realized I didn't bring my water down far enough when I wet the canvas, wet the paper. So just adding a little more water to it. So we're going to take our purple and our red that we did before, mix those up, try to get the same color we had before, and bring that down in here. And just add it in pretty loosely. It doesn't have to be perfect. But we do want it in here where we had it up top. We can just fade off the bottom of the page. I want to let these colors blend down here. And again, we're mimicking, we're flipping the colors up above, down below. But these down below are more muted and more blended than up above because down below it's supposed to be water. And then we have some black in there as well. So blue mixed with black. It's going to come right down. Along the edges, just adding that in, that deeper shadow area. And I'm just using the flat part of my brush and just pulling the paint down. We have our sky, we have our very loose forest, and then we have our water down below reflecting. At this point, you could add anything in you wanted. You could bring some branches down, some little shrubs if you wanted to. You can take your big brush if you want. This is not necessary because we've done a nice job of blending the reflection, but you can actually take a wet brush and just pull it very lightly back and forth to blend that a little bit. You want to do it very softly, always with a clean brush. And it just gives a little bit more of a look of water. So I have a little bonus. You can make any snowy painting look even more snowy. You basically take your watered down white acrylic paint, load up the brush, and then flick the white paint onto your painting. And that's it. You have a finished painting. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you'll join us again soon.